What up? All my scientists, my artists, my philosophers, my geneticists, my roboticists, my biologists, my archaeologists, my astronomers. Let's get busy. This has been Busy from the Burbs. Cheer.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Busy from the Burbs, broadcasting to you from Kyoto, Japan. Today, Trailer Park Master Chef, AJ McComb, XJ, all off today. So it's been a while since I flew solo here. I hope I remember how to do it. What do I want to talk about today? So, first, I want to talk about Cenk Uygur. For those who don't know, Cenk Uygur is the founder and, lead anchor for the Young Turks news podcast / YouTube show, of which I am a big fan. I love Cenk. I love his work. I love what he does. His perspective is refreshing, and it's a lot of no bullshit progressivism, which is sorely missing from media. You often find that in the ossified major broadcasting companies, there's no progressive bite. It's aside from a Seymour Hersh or someone like that. There isn't a lot of groundbreaking actual journalism happening. I saw on Jason Ponton's Facebook or Twitter page the other day, Jason is the editor of Technology Review, which is the MIT publication. He was angry because someone had attributed a quote that was purportedly said by Hearst. What's his name? Randolph Hearst. I believe his name was. Yeah, William Randolph Hearst. But they had attributed it to Orwell, and he took umbrage with that fact. He took umbrage with that because I guess, he's a big fan of Orwell or what have you. But the quote read, journalism is printing things that somebody else doesn't want you to print. Everything else is fantasy or fluff or something like that. There's a grain of truth in that. I think that most major media outlets from the outside looking in appear to be, like I said, ossified and lacking any actual, journalistic rigor, or turning it up in areas where maybe it's not necessary. We'll see. Jason Calacanis is still holding to this notion that Theranos is vaporware and that it's going to go down in history as the Enron of our time, which I just don't see that happening. But how did I get onto this? So Cenk Uygur is the managing editor, or the founder and a lead broadcaster for the Young Turks network. Anyway, Cenk is a Turkish American or American Turkish. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but it kind of does, given the fact that we have in Erdogan right-wing psychopath extremist supporting ISIS, buying oil illegally that's being exported from Syria by ISIS to Turkey, and providing material support and perhaps personnel support to ISIS. Accused of bombing pro-Kurdish peace protesters and then blaming it on Kurdish separatists, having jailed innumerable, not innumerable, it's not like they're grains of sand on a beach, but he's jailed a number of journalists in Turkey. And there's a history in Erdogan's regime of doing things like shutting down Twitter and YouTube or banning Wikipedia because someone was critical of the founder of the modern Turkish state, etc., etc. You'll notice, like recently, this is really what was kind of like a barometer reading for me. Recently, Erdogan stated how he would like to have a country more like Hitler. He said something like Hitler ran a very tight ship, or I want to get the exact verbiage. Let's see here. Yeah, Erdogan cites Hitler's Germany as an example of effective government, right? So this is basically the guy, right? Turkey also in league with, besides ISIS, also in league with, Saudi Arabia and the hardline right-wing government of Israel and so on and so forth. I mean, not necessarily the best guy in this broadcaster's opinion. And Cenk is big into foreign policy and global affairs and so on and so forth. And I did a Google search because I wanted to know, like, what is his actual opinion of this madman who's running the modern Turkish state. And I couldn't find anything recently. Like, maybe within 3 months, maybe there was something. And I found that kind of fucked up, because how can you present yourself as a voice of progressives and yet you have this person who's blatantly flouting international law and siding with our enemies, actively engaged in rendering material support, perhaps personnel support and equipment support to ISIS, and not comment on this. This is like the elephant in the fucking room. What the fuck is your issue, Cenk? Where do you stand on the modern Turkish state? It's not the best place on earth right now. And I just would like to hear some type of fucking commentary on it. He's like suspiciously quiet about it. Maybe I'm fucked up. I probably am, because I don't think that Cenk is like, for example, when Erdogan shut down YouTube, Cenk was quick to address that on the Young Turks program. And I saw that and was like, okay, good to go, So I know that, like, he has a history of speaking out against this type of bullshit. There's still a Vice News journalist who's being held, I guess he's a Kurd, ethnic Kurd, or anyway, he's being held by ethnic Kurd or Turkish national, I think, being held by the Turkish government, by Erdogan. What the fuck is all that about? It's an issue, and I would hope to hear more than what I've heard from Cenk. In doing that kind of background research to see what does he actually think, I looked back at an old video where Cenk openly criticizes I guess there were individuals, journalists or otherwise, who were citing their sources for people who were kind of anti-Erdogan, or expressing anti-Erdogan sympathies or sentiments. And Erdogan presumably called the publisher of the newspaper to talk to him and demanded that, he'd tell him who these people were, and the publisher agreed that he would, and then started crying. And Cenk criticized this publisher, saying, "This is, you're basically pathetic. This is like the saddest thing, blah, blah, blah." And I couldn't help but be struck by this kind of like lack of empathy displayed there. Because let's face it, if you're a publisher living in Erdogan's Turkey, it's very probable, I don't think it's impossible, that Erdogan could make your life very difficult. He can murder your entire family. We're talking about someone who is dealing directly with ISIS and rendering them material support. Like, this is not someone who is above murdering your entire fucking family because you published some criticism of him or his presidency. So I'd like Cenk, if you're listening to this, which you're probably not, but who knows, it is the internet. If you're listening to this, please, clarify your position on Turkey a little bit more vociferously so that we can actually get a sense of where you stand. Because right now, when I listen to the broadcast, there are these issues surrounding the modern state of Turkey that don't look good, and I feel like the Young Turks isn't doing enough to be outspoken to kind of call Erdogan on his bullshit. But that's just me. That's where I am. Let's see what else is in the news. The Obama tries to bridge divide on guns. It seems as wide as ever. I don't understand. What is the problem here, people? How difficult is this? Universal background checks. That's what he was calling for. He wasn't calling for a ban on assault rifles. It wasn't calling on anything else. Just pass some background checks to prevent people from being able to order and purchase guns online without submitting to a background check. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. Can we just fucking drop all of the partisan pretense, all the bullshit, and just, reason this out like civilized men and women? Can we do that? I think we can do that. I think we can do that, America. I think we can. It just doesn't have anything to do, Democrat, Republican, pro-gun, anti-gun. People who are gun supporters, as I am one, should endorse a policy like this. There's nothing wrong with this. If you can't pass a background check, well, it's like trying to get a driver's license. You know what I mean? No one is infringing upon your constitutional right. Or if they are, then that needs to be reinterpreted, because just because you are an American citizen does not mean that you rate a firearm. I don't give a fuck what the Constitution says. That needs to get amended. That's like saying, okay, a baby is a citizen of the United States, so a baby is, has a right to bear arms. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Or an extraordinarily elderly person, or a blind person. There needs to be certain fucking rules behind the acquisition and the ownership of firearms in order to keep people I'm not totally safe. This is the argument against banning guns outright. If you ban guns outright, it's just dumb. It's dumb to do that, because criminals will always get a hold of them. The black market will flourish. You're not going to get rid of the problem. What you can do is simply make it institute controls to prevent at least some psychopaths from acquiring guns. Could some sociopath steal their brother's gun, who passed the background check, or get someone in their family to purchase the gun for them to pass the background check. Yes, of course. But it makes it that much more unlikely that that person would get a gun. Now, we're facing the brave new world of 3D printed guns. You'd think that any measure that could be passed by the executive or by the legislative branch would just be stopgap, given the fact that in less than, now you can download the plans for the Defender, distributed defense or defense distributed, their weapon, and 3D print it and be out shooting in no time. You could do that. It's very easy to do. We are entering that brave new world, but until we get there, at least something, okay? At least do something here. We're going to need different measures. This kind of segues into an entire discussion about civil liberties, privacy, and the right to being secure in your person, in your home, from unreasonable searches and seizures. There's a lot of stuff disrupting the Constitution right now. And thankfully, it's a living document.